I swear to God, if you were taking a shot every time you heard this, you've had a very long offseason. The Raiders could trade defensive end Maxx Crosby as early as this week. That per Albert Breer. Several teams keeping tabs on his availability, including the Cowboys, Eagles, and Patriots. To help us break all of it down now, Q Myers, host on Raider Nation Radio, Locked On Raiders podcast. Your boy Q is where you find him. You can also listen to him on Game Night on ESPN Radio. Q, I don't know, man. Like every time I think I'll be honest, and we've talked about this, but Caroline was sitting right next to me when Jay Glazer on our show said Maxx Crosby's done as a Raider, and I was stunned. I had no idea. Now I feel like every 2 days I hear somebody say he's getting traded. He's not getting traded. What do you think? What's going to happen to Maxx?
Well, first of all, I think it's your guys' fault that this whole firestorm's going on.
That's fair.
That happened on Radio Row. There's ahead of Super Bowl 60. So, yeah, you guys got this whole bad boy started. But honestly, Jason, I've been that guy that's just been kind of waiting and seeing how it all plays out. I've been very adamant that I don't think he's going anywhere for the longest. But you know how this thing plays out, man. The more that you continue to hear more smoke behind everything, it feels like that there's got to be eventual fire somewhere, right? I mean, to this moment, and I don't know, maybe there's been an update. I have not heard the Raiders come out and flat say, we aren't trading Maxx Crosby. And I haven't heard Maxx Crosby come out and flat say, I'm not going anywhere. So until I hear one of the two sides or both say that, I feel like that there's always going to be a situation and a possibility. And with the new league year right around the corner, it would make sense for a team or multiple teams to try to make a move.
So let's live in a world, because we do not live in a world of certainty. We live in a world of rumors and gossip, and we live for it in the NFL. But let's live in a world where Maxx Crosby is not a Raider. What is a trade package that makes sense? And what's a landing spot that would make sense for Maxx Crosby?
I mean, I think anywhere in the NFC would make a lot of sense. I mean, you ideally don't want to put them in the same conference, but I mean, when you're a team like the Raiders, you have to go for the best offer if, in fact, you do feel like, okay, we're going to make that move. I think it starts with a couple ones. I know that the Micah Parsons trade has been the kind of the example that everyone's been given, 2 ones and an impact player. I don't know if Maxx Crosby at 29 gets that, but I'm not just letting him go like I'm going to the dollar store, right? I'm not trying to tell him that it's a special on aisle 5 and Maxx Crosby's available. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to allow not only an impact player on the field, but also a big-time leader of your organization, a leader in the locker room, a guy who's there at 4 a.m., first guy in, last guy out. I mean, I know that sounds cliche, but that's who that dude is. If you're going to be willing to let him go for the sake of you're trying to rebuild this team and maybe your timelines don't match up and he wants to win, that's fine, right? Okay, I can get over it at some point moving on from him, but it has to be very beneficial to the team. So I would say it's got to be at least 2 ones, and it's got to be a team that's a contender because it doesn't make any sense. Like I've heard people float the Jets. I was like, well, what kind of sense does that make? They're bad, if not worse than the Raiders, right? They're in a worse position than the Raiders. Why would he want to go from that to that? I mean, so I'm looking at a team like the Cowboys make sense. They have the 2 ones this year. I don't think they get both, but number 12 doesn't look too bad, right? I'm looking at teams like the Bears. That could make sense. You know, a team like the Bills, that makes sense. Really, I mean, any team that is a contender. I've seen the Seahawks floated out there, but I mean, that's pick 32. That might as well be the first pick in round 1 or round 2. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those, you know, pick your poison, but I do think that at the end of the day, if in fact he's not a Raider, it has to be super beneficial to the team.
Q, you're around the organization. You've been around Mark Davis for a long time. I keep wondering, Mark Davis seems to like being liked. He already traded Khalil Mack. How hard is it? Like, in my mind, if I'm Mark Davis and I've already just gone through a generation of fans absolutely destroying me for trading a Hall of Fame edge rusher, how hard is it for me to turn around, even if everybody tells me it makes sense, and then trade what could end up being a future Hall of Fame edge rusher? That'd be twice.
Very hard. Yeah, no, very hard. And it's so funny because that scenario and that situation that happened with Khalil Mack keeps popping up. And I mean, Jason, you know, I've been rocking with the Raiders for a long time. I still remember the moment that I found out that Khalil was on his way to the Bears. And I remember the devastation that I felt, right? The how in the world can the Raiders allow this to happen? And so all of a sudden, if it happens again, you know what I mean? It's like one of those just can't have nice things. So I think that Mark would be really hurt if Maxx was traded. Not to mention him and Maxx have a really good relationship, right? And so that's kind of where I've been on the side of I don't think he's going anywhere. He's so loyal to this team, as you know, so loyal, right? And I know that he wants to win in Vegas. I know in his heart he wants to win, and I doubt that he really truly wants to go anywhere. But I also understand that he probably is looking at the timeline of, hey, man, John Spytek saying that we're not going to win anytime soon. This isn't going to be a quick turnaround like the Patriots or, the Jaguars or the Bears. This is going to be, a slow build, but a correct build. And so does that match up with Maxx and his desires to win? I don't know. And that's why those conversations have to be had in that building.
It's been a slow build. That's for sure. It's been about a 25-year-long rebuild. It's been slow, that's for sure. Low and slow, no doubt.
It's like making a brisket, right? It's like you're going to cook a brisket, right? Low and slow.
Uh-huh.
Can't microwave a brisket. And you know what? The wait is worth it. 20 years is a long wait. But,
all right. We got it.
Sure is going to be sweet. You bring up John Spytek. We know that Tom Brady's in the building. We've heard that he's going to play a larger role in, roster construction and player evaluation. What's your trust level in the organization, in the front office to get all of this right?
It's higher than it probably should be, right? And I don't know if that's just because it sounds good and I'm waiting for it to actually look good and be good, but right now, it just seems like, as opposed to last year, John Spytek really has a plan, and he really has his hands in the mix, as opposed to kind of being Pete Carroll's right-hand man. And that's not a shot at Pete Carroll. He just has a resume that says, I know what I'm doing. I've been here, done that. Get out of my way, young kid. Let me handle this. And so now with Clint Kubiak in there, it feels like, and this is just from being around them a little bit, feels like there's synergy. It feels like there's all on the same page. It feels like their timelines match up, as opposed to Pete Carroll wanting to win 10 games right away and John Spytek saying, this roster's not really built for 10 wins right away. When you don't see young guys playing right away, you don't see them playing until week 9, 10, 11, you're going to see young guys playing early and often in 2026, I do believe. So it feels like everyone's on the same page, which is a good step in the right direction. Now, the big thing is you have 10 picks, so you have to hit on the majority of them. Obviously, we know the first round pick is going to be the quarterback. That's an opportunity the Raiders haven't had. And I think Fernando Mendoza, just a side note, will be the best quarterback the Raiders have had since 2016 Derek Carr. That's just me. That's what I've been saying. And Derek Carr in 2016 was really stinking good. We all know that. So I think that this is the next opportunity the Raiders have. Clint Kubiak is a really good play caller. Will he be a really good head coach? We'll find out, right? But, I mean, you have steps in the right direction. You've got the play caller. You've got to have protection up front. You've got to have some playmakers. But outside of that, I think that the Raiders have an opportunity. They've got plenty of salary cap space. So, again, right decisions have to be made, and we said that before. But if they do hit on those right decisions, this team can get things turned around.
Q, it is interesting, though. One of the decisions that they've already made is that they're switching to a 3-4 defense under Rob Leonard, the new defensive coordinator. How's that work for Maxx, and what does that mean for the way that they're going to structure the additions they're going to have to make on this roster?
Well, I mean, it's really good linebacking draft, the linebackers. And if you look at the linebackers currently on the roster, the majority of them are free agents, right? From E-Rob to Jabal Adams to Devin White, those are all free agents. So I think that you're going to see, again, going back to this roster turnaround, a complete overhaul of this roster. And I think there's multiple linebackers, and we saw that they ran one of the fastest 40s that we've ever seen. I mean, these guys can move. These linebackers are getting bigger, faster, stronger. All these players are. We just saw them at the scouting combine. So I think you're going to see a new plethora of linebackers come into the roster. I think that Maxx Crosby, you decide what you're going to do with him. To me, he's always a guy with his hand in the dirt. So, that's obviously a decision that you have to make. I don't really want to see Maxx Crosby standing up. But then again, you could look at TJ Watt in Pittsburgh and say, okay, well, if he can be similar and replicate what TJ does, that's not a bad thing. So I think that Robbie Leonard understands how to use these guys. Him and Maxx are really close. So I don't think that he would have a defense where Maxx is not going to fit. I'm looking forward to seeing a big nose tackle, a big block eater, and allow these linebackers to come downhill and make tackles. So I'm excited for Robbie Leonard. Jason, being around the team, he's a guy that's been well respected for a very long time. And for him to get this opportunity, he's learned under Mike McDonald. He's learned under Brian Flores. He's learned under Patrick Graham. Now he's got the opportunity to put his own thumbprint on the organization. I'm excited to see what Robbie Leonard and this 3-4 defense is going to look like.
I do want to look at the other side of the ball, though, because I absolutely loved the Clint Kubiak hire. I think he's an offensive genius. He's got some pieces to work with. Brock Bowers, when they draft Fernando Mendoza, And then Ashton Jeanty as well. And Clint Kubiak has come out and said that we want this to be a running back by committee. We want to get a wingman for Ashton Jeanty. What are some names that make sense, in your opinion, to kind of be that 1-2 punch with Ashton Jeanty?
Well, I think even Raheem Mostert, and I know he's a free agent, I think that he would make sense, right? He didn't get a whole lot of run last year, and when he ran hard, right, and ran with a purpose. I think that he would be a good veteran in there, a good, wingman to say to Ashton Jeanty. I also think that there's a couple running backs that you can go look at and bring in from the draft that you can get later in the draft. You don't have to get a guy that's a super stud. It's funny, I saw that David Montgomery trade and I was like, wow, David Montgomery and Ashton Jeanty would have been crazy, but Montgomery wants to be a lead back, and obviously Ashton Jeanty is going to be that guy. So you just have to find a complement. The other thing with this, and I asked Clint Kubiak about this at the scouting combine, everywhere he's gone he's had a real fullback with him. And so I asked him, how important is it going to be? And he lit up. He doesn't get too fired up about too much, but he lit up. His face got a big smile on his face that, the fullback's going to be essential. So there's, a few fullbacks that are in the draft that are available. The one from Michigan, he was the guy that the Raiders met with at the combine. So there's the guy there. There's multiple guys across the league, but I look for a fullback to be added to this roster as well, because again, that's been a staple of what Clint Kubiak's been doing.
Kubiak has also kind of made it clear that they don't think the offensive line situation is as desperate as many fans feel like it is. Do you expect the Raiders will go into this offseason with almost $100 million to spend aggressive on the offensive line, or are they just going to see how these guys handle different coaching?
John Spytek said intelligently aggressive is going to be their approach. And so, I do think that they're going to be aggressive. I do think the offensive line needs some work. There are some pieces to work with. But that center position, I think Tyler Linderbaum, as many teams are going to try to focus in on him, including his own team in Baltimore, I think Linderbaum makes all the sense in the world. So if you back up the Brinks truck and bring him in, then you kill the debate right there of JPJ as a center or a guard. You slide him into a guard spot. You have Colton Miller. You decide what you're doing with DJ Glaze. You have Caleb Rogers from a year ago. Where does he slide in? What is Charles Grant? How does he fit in this mix? There's some pieces to work with, but I think that the center has to be so important, and they have to get that figured out. Not to mention, remember, they're moving to a zone blocking scheme now, which is a staple of the Kubiak-Shanahan-style offense. And he told me athletic offensive lineman, intelligent offensive lineman, especially that center, has to be super intelligent to be able to run this scheme. And Rick Dennison comes in as the offensive line coach. He's a guy that is been basically a master of this. Wherever he's gone, he's a 4-time Super Bowl champ winner. So obviously he's got the skins on the wall, but they've got to master this zone blocking scheme. Jason, watching the Raiders, that has never worked for the Raiders. That blocking scheme has never worked for the Raiders. Ever. So they've got to get it right. They've got to be able to figure out who their 5 is going to be, get in there and start working, repeat, rinse and repeat, so they can get this thing down so it actually has a chance to work. When it works, it's a great offensive line, blocking scheme. When it doesn't, it looks like the Raiders of old.
Intelligently aggressive. I love that. I'm going to steal that. I do love it. You just have to couch it. Like, look, we're going to be aggressive, but we will be smart with it. Okay. We're not going to get crazy around here. We've got a strategy. Trust us. And Q, I'm always of the belief that bad organizations fail young quarterbacks far more than young quarterbacks fail organizations. In order to have a healthy environment around Fernando Mendoza, whether that's front office, coaching staff, pieces around him on the field, what is the offseason to-do list in order of priority, in your opinion?
It looks like my Christmas list back in the day, right? It looks like what I used to roll out and pass to Mama Q and be like, all right, this is what I'm going to need on that 25th of December, right? This is what I'm going to need. But really, it's going to be a busy offseason. It really is. I mean, this roster, they have 25 free agents, which is a good thing, right? I mean, you don't have to worry about cutting guys. You could just guys that don't fit with what you want to do, just don't re-sign them, right? And so I think that you're going to see this Raiders team look similar to what we saw in Tampa Bay when Tom Brady and company decided that they were done. After they won their championship and they were walking off into the sunset, that roster at Tampa Bay got turned around so much, and it was so young. That's what I think you're going to see with the Raiders this year, to be able to make sure that they work with Fernando Mendoza and not fail him. They've got to have the 3 Ps, and I'll pass this along to you as well. They've got to have the play caller, they've got to have protection, and they've got to have playmakers. They got the play caller in Clint Kubiak. Protection is questionable. They've got to make sure that the protection is there, and the playmakers, they got a couple, but it's not going to hurt to get a couple more. So that's what they have to make sure that they can do to even give Fernando Mendoza an opportunity, because you hit it on the head. Teams fail quarterback, especially early on, more than the quarterback fails the organization.
I'm gonna add a P on that one, and just patience
now.
is the other one. It's a little, patience. It's a little up and down. And and if in the draft they could go ahead and get a transformer, we could go straight back to our childhood and enjoy every ounce of that Christmas day. Q, you're always doing great work. Follow him on social media at your boy Q254. Make sure you listen to Locked On Raiders podcast. You can also check him out on Raider Nation Radio and Game Night on ESPN Radio. He's the busiest man in America. Q, love you, buddy. Thanks for coming on and hanging out with us, buddy. Appreciate you. Enjoy some. I'm glad we got some non-me Raiders insights on this show.
Hey, no problem. Anytime you call, man, I'm answering that phone. Appreciate y'all having me on.